It's Open World Chat. And today, if you haven't guessed, we're going to have a lot to say about Superman. Movie just came out. We're going to talk about the political controversy around Superman, such as it is, which is bizarre because since when has Superman been controversial? But whatever. Anyways, I'm John Odom. I'm here with Mark Card. We are your co-hosts. Hey, Mark.
Greetings and salutations.
I'm really excited about this because it feels like a part two of a Superman series, sort of. We had a Superman discussion long time ago, a couple years ago, I guess, talking about the proliferation of evil Superman and what that meant to our collective psyche. Well, we've moved beyond the psyche here into the political or the socio-political, and we're going to talk about what's going on. And there are going to be spoilers. There are definitely going to be spoilers.
Yeah,
Uh,
we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie.
yeah,
So if you haven't seen it yet, come back next week.
right, right. We've sworn off reviewing it, but I'm sure we'll be reviewing it first thing out of the gate. So, that's just how it goes. So, yeah, Mark, you brought up that you wanted to talk about this, which I was thrilled to hear. Why don't you get us going and tell us what you're thinking?
Imagine being a conservative Republican American in 2025
Oh,
and
no,
hating
no.
Superman. Hating Superman.
Yeah.
Superman. Wait, one more time. These people hate Superman. How is
Or if
that
you if
possible?
if you want to say it like the old Super Friends
I
series,
mean,
Superman.
do we live in Bizarro world?
Ooh, maybe that'll be the next movie.
I think we're in Bizarro world.
Or
This
getting
is
closer all the
crazy.
time.
Republicans have completely rejected Superman because he's too woke.
'Cause he's
To which I
too
say,
woke.
do you know anything about Superman at all? Because obviously they don't.
They don't. And what I worry about and wonder about more is their I don't want to say reading comprehension, what their visual, their movie comprehension. Did they see the same movie that I did? Uh,
Well, let me tell you what I think is going on here, for at least from my point of view. I don't think James Gunn made an overtly political movie.
yeah.
I don't think that was his intention.
Mhm.
I, I think he wanted to tell a good story. And I think the Republicans in America these days are a bit like the Soviets. There is nothing which is not political under any circumstances. So if we can find a way to make it political, we're going to make it political.
I think that is absolutely right, and that is the problem, and that's what we're dealing with,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
mean,
crazy.
it's like it just doesn't make any sense to me that not everything is political. This is a fun movie. It just happens that the values Superman stands for, and I might add, has always stood for, go against their values now.
And there's one though. I mean, Superman is not a political character. I mean, let's get to it. Superman is compassionate. Superman is empathetic. Superman has feelings for, wants to protect his the rest of humanity. And I think when you start talking about making things political, I think what we've seen over the last few years, we've certainly heard empathy overtly trashed.
Yes,
I think those things, I think empathy, I think I don't want to say goodness, but compassion. I think they have become political issues and they were never meant to be. They never should have been.
I think
And
they've become political issues because a certain set of values have been abandoned.
and being replaced by a new set, which I don't know if you can call them values. But anyways, so let's talk a little about the movie first. You liked it more than I did.
Yes, a bit, yes. But then, as I pointed out in our earlier discussion, our pregame discussion, I'm not as familiar with the comics as you are.
Well, I'm not all that familiar with Superman myself. We're at a closer. I
Okay.
mean, I'm going to know a little more of the lore and the history than you, but not that much. I'm not a big. When I was a lot younger, when I was a kid, really, I was more of a. I was a total DC head. Superman, Green Lantern, Flash. It took me a while to get back into a lot of those characters. I had to get into them more in my adult life again, but I missed a lot of that, unfortunately. So we're a little closer on than you might think.
Okay. I was just assuming that because you almost always know more about the comic book based characters than I do. So,
I'm the comic guy of the group here.
but let's start with the immigration issue. Superman is a literal and figurative alien.
Mhm.
And he's literally from another planet, but he's not born American. He would not have birthright citizenship.
Right.
And, as the movie points out, he's very upfront about this. He understands that that people are going to view him this way. And I think that's comic accurate. But again, we're running into a values problem. I recently saw a supercut of all the presidents before Trump, starting with Eisenhower.
Hmm.
And each one of the presidents, all the way up to Trump, has said very positive things about immigrants, about how they're essential to our political identity, how they're essential to our identity as Americans. And that stops with a very sudden, abrupt halt, a whiplash inducing halt with Trump.
Hmm. Oh yeah. Which,
And
granted, had been building for a while. It didn't
oh,
come out of
sure,
nowhere,
it'd been,
but
yeah,
no.
absolutely. But even their nominal savior, Reagan, Reagan gave hundreds of thousands of undocumented workers amnesty. I mean, that was the last immigration reform bill we had before Trump was in 1986, and
Yep,
it gave a whole bunch of people amnesty.
it
So
did.
this is not just a major departure from uh, Republican policy and Republican values. It's a major departure from a fundamental value in America.
Well, when the Republicans talk about being woke, they go straight to the language.
Right.
They go straight to, pronouns, or word terms like critical race theory. They're all about the language. And one of the words that they've targeted now is immigrant. I, so right before we started this, my son is staying with me, and I said what we were going to talk about. Oh, he said, oh, Piers Morgan just had this interview with Dean Cain, and I see you shaking your head there, Dean Cain, and a few other podcast geeks to talk about the politics of Superman and everything. And the first thing that comes up, because James Gunn said Superman's an immigrant, so that fired off the triggers, right? It triggered all
Yeah.
these right wingers because they heard their term. And Dean Cain said, "Now I think Dean Cain, Superman from the what was it, the '90s, Superman and Lois, or Lois and Superman, or I can't remember.
Lois and Clark.
Lois and Clark, right? Of course, I never got into that.
Neither
Obviously,
did I.
um, he wanted to make the point, and he's a super right winger.
Yeah.
He's scary. He wanted to make the point there that Superman is not an immigrant; he's a refugee." I know, right?
These
And Piers
these
Morgan, who's a boob, was like, well, wait a minute, wait a minute. What do you mean? Because a refugee is an immigrant. He's like, no, no, he's a refugee, not an immigrant. So that word, they can't deal with the word.
well, here's the problem. It's not that they can't deal with the word, it's they can't deal with facts.
Well, that too,
That's
but
the
they're
big
also big
problem.
on language.
These are the same people that have been saying for two generations now, we don't live in a democracy, we live in a republic.
I know, don't you hate
Yeah,
that?
same
And they
difference,
get
dude.
so bent out of shape.
Difference without a
Democratic
distinction.
Republic, Republican democracy, whatever. It's got democracy in the title. Live with it.
They're all democracies.
Right.
What I tell people who say this is okay, so anybody who tries to point this out has an agenda that doesn't help you. It just helps them. And I
Hmm.
said the other thing is that this is a different, I mean, a distinction without a difference. What I tell them is this is a straw man argument. That's what it is. The, what they really mean is we don't have a direct
Direct
democracy.
democracy, right.
Well,
But the thing is, they both have adjectives in front of them here. There's direct democracy, there's Republican democracy. They're democracies. That's the act, that's
but,
the word here.
but what I tell them is, look, guys, what you're trying to do here is say that uh, we don't have a direct democracy. Well, of course we don't. Direct democracy in a very large uh,
Right.
polity, a very large political entity is completely impossible.
Right.
So what you're saying is we don't have this thing that doesn't exist and can't exist and will never exist.
We have a representative democracy.
We have this.
Hmm.
No, we don't. It's all democracy. So
Yeah,
let's just
right.
get that out of the way. But
Well,
these
and
people,
that's important. I'm glad you said that. Um, it's well, I mean, I don't want to get too off, but that is a usual thing you hear. And it's a big deal to them. And I'm not sure why, but it is a huge deal with them. I think it's because it's a statement of their intellectuality more than anything. I think they're saying, I know and I get this and I understand America and you don't. Because what are the political ramifications for this distinction? None.
well, there actually are some political ramifications for it.
Well, I mean, just in the having a conversation and talking about policy. It's
Oh
like,
yeah, no, exactly.
yeah, I mean,
But
who
but
cares?
my deal is there's an agenda behind this, and the agenda behind this and saying we don't need a democracy, we need a constitutional republic. They're afraid of the democratic mob, and that is code
Hmm.
switch for people who are not white.
Hmm. Oh, yeah, sure.
That's what they're referring to. We don't want people who aren't like us making decisions for us. Well, because they will do the same things to us that we did to them.
Hmm.
So you have to understand when somebody like Dean Cain comes out and says, well, this is about, he's a refugee, not an immigrant. Is he here? Yes. Did he come here from another place? Yes.
Right,
Immigrant, refugee, the same. The circumstances are different for each, but that doesn't mean the basic concept is different.
right. Now he's got the, yeah. I mean, all refugees are immigrants. Not all immigrants are refugees, but
That's
all
correct.
refugees are immigrants. That was just so dumb. And you could hear everyone else, you could feel everybody else on the panel just sort of like, can we move on?
It's and so, when you're talking about this kind of ignorance, and that's what this really is. This is really all about ignorance. This is about a fundamental misunderstanding of how the real world works. And that's a real problem here. Republicans live on a steady diet of fantasy, which is very, very satisfactory, but it's pretty empty calories. And
Yeah.
they've been making policy for 25, 30 years based on this fantasy that immigrants are bad, that if you come here from another country, why didn't you just stay in your other country? Well, ask your great, great, great grandparents who were the ones that came here to begin with. So this immigration thing is just annoying, like nobody's business.
Yeah.
Superman, and let me make a bigger point about this. So, when the Syrian civil war started during Obama, one of the things that, and we're getting way off topic here, we got to go back to Superman. But
Yeah, that's all right.
one
Well,
of
I
the
mean, yeah, it's worth hovering at here, and it's yeah.
one of the big things that conservatives said was, "Oh my God, these people are going to be terrorists. They're going to come and cause trouble, and they don't speak the same language, and they're not going to assimilate, and they're Muslims, and they're terrorists." So I did a little research on the average Syrian immigrant to the United States. They were more likely to have a PhD. They were more likely to start their own businesses. They were more likely to follow the path to become citizens legally. They were more likely to be successful in that business. They were more likely than American citizens to join the armed forces. Superman is exactly the kind of immigrant you want in this country.
Right.
He is here to exceed your expectations and provide more services and more value to the country than he could have at home.
Hmm.
Superman is who you want as an immigrant. And I have news for you. So are all the other millions of immigrants who come here.
Hmm.
And one of the most successful bits of propaganda the Republicans have succeeded in talking about immigrants is convincing everyone they are criminals. This is crazy. So, first of all, you are far less likely to die at the hand of any immigrant, regardless of status, than American citizens in a terrorist attack. White nationalist terrorists are a far greater danger to everyone in the country
Hmm.
than anybody who's an immigrant of any kind, legal or documented either way. Undocumented doesn't make any difference. The other thing is, and this one puzzles me because there's no logic here. So you're going to come to this country from another country, and then you're going to be a violent criminal. The fact is, immigrants are far less likely to commit any kind of crime, but especially violent crime in the United States. And that's true whether they are here according to the plan or not.
Hmm.
They are far less likely to commit any kind of crime. And I don't understand why Republicans would think, oh, well, they're immigrants, so they're criminals. They're not going to engage in criminal activity because they don't want to go home. And that's especially true if they haven't followed the process.
Well, you know what they do, of course. They depend on anecdotes. They'll find the one that was, and then they'll parade that story as the representative of all of them. And that's, and there's enough people coming in. It's not to say that no immigrants have ever broken the law, but when one does, and you make them into the stand-in for all immigrants, you're just talking bullshit.
Yeah, I mean
And
that's nothing short of a Nazi technique.
mhm,
It's exactly what the Nazis did. They talked
sure,
about Jews that way. Same thing.
hmm, yeah,
These people are
absolutely.
subhuman. They're dangerous. They're violent. They're diseased. It's exactly the same thing, and they're doing that to turn the heads of those who either are so consumed by ideology they don't know how to make good judgments, or aren't well educated, or have something to benefit from by taking this stance.
So James Gunn made the point of saying Superman's an immigrant. They all
Yes,
flipped out. Now, what about the actual movie? Is that is that identity per se presented in any way, shape, or form? It's really not. He's just the same Superman.
it's
Uh,
just Superman. It's this. I mean, you have to think about this in terms of the origin of the character. Look at the United States in 1938.
mhm.
Immigrants are everywhere in the country, and they're everywhere in a very visible way. Now, that's going to be mostly in big cities like New York, but hey, guess what? All of the media are focused on New York. So, Gotham or Metropolis,
Right.
but they're everywhere in society. They're in small towns, they're in large towns, they're everywhere. So people are not going to look upon immigrants as unfavorable because they're contributing to the economy. They're contributing to society. The other side of that coin is
I mean, unless they're dark skinned.
that's true.
They
Yes.
did. I mean, there is just the straight up racism.
Oh, of
But
course. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that's just the way it is in 1938.
Right. Right.
Uh,
Exactly. Just didn't want to
it's
get away from that
it's
lesson learned. Yep.
unfortunate, yeah, and we don't want to de-emphasize that, but
Right.
it's important to understand that this is just Superman being Superman.
Hmm.
I mean, this is who the character is. It's who the character has been all along,
Right.
and they don't know anything about it, so they just assume that it's that they're right about it.
Yeah. Right.
They're applying their values to something they are completely ignorant about. They
And,
don't know Superman, you
and you know
know?
what's frustrating is we all enjoyed the Christopher Reeve movies. I
Yeah.
don't care if you were liberal, conservative, whatever. Everybody liked those movies. So why do they insist on getting it so wrong? It's so important to them to have an enemy
I'll
to,
I'll I'll
and it's
uh,
very frustrating. It's
I'll
very
throw a
frustrating.
hypothesis out there. The Republican ideology is now closed loop. There is no uh, possibility that your ideology could be faulty.
Right.
If you accept their premises, then there is no logical flaw. So, of course, they insist on being wrong because if they might have to admit that they aren't, then they will have to rethink their entire ideology.
Right. Nobody wants to do
And nobody wants to do
that.
that. Nobody wants to have their biases disconfirmed. Nobody wants to have their specific uh, understanding of the world questioned. But there is no doubt about this, and I'm going to be controversial when I say this, but part of this is because they view the Constitution the same way evangelical religions view the Bible, that it was handed down by God. They
Right.
believe this in both circles, that it is completely and totally inerrant,
Right.
that it should be taken literally,
Hmm.
and that it should never, ever, ever be changed.
Notwithstanding, we have amendments. I know. I hate that. We have amendments. We've been changing it. Oh my God. But
Well, and the
you're
reason why
absolutely
we have
right.
amendments, and the reason why we have amendments, which is because the founding fathers, who, by the way, they claim to be the cultural descendants of and the political descendants of, understood they didn't know everything and they were going to make mistakes and things were going to change in the country. So we were going to have to change stuff.
And they were not monolithic. You had a lot of different people with a lot of different opinions. They
Yeah,
weren't all right because they didn't agree with each other.
that's
Um,
correct.
like the
But
founding fathers as this collective Jesus, is just nuts.
it's well, not to mention they went through an incredible amount of debate before they found it, before they figured anything out.
Right.
People. My favorite quote that is just taken completely out of context is the one that says that the what is it? The tree of liberty needs to be watered by the blood of patriots every once in a while. Do you
I
have
don't
any
know who
idea
said that.
how long the founders waited before they resorted to violence?
Yeah, some things had to really
They
change. The
they
conditions had to really change.
exhausted,
The commercial conditions largely, but the
yeah,
conditions had to change.
but it didn't matter. They tried to exhaust all of their options within the colonial system before they declared war.
Hmm.
They did everything they possibly could. And no, I don't think the founding fathers were perfect, and I don't think they did everything right.
Sure.
But you have to and this is why I think they get so much stuff about the Constitution right. Reading the Constitution isn't enough for you to understand how the government works. You have to understand the context in which it was written, and uh, that requires a lot of work. That requires understanding something about Enlightenment philosophy, about the Great Awakening religious movement in the country a few years before the founders started deciding to rebel. It requires an understanding of the military context. Uh, And you can't just read the Constitution and understand everything and why it's there
Right.
and why it was put there and what they considered instead of what was there.
Hmm.
Um, and so you have this religious effect, and I mean little r religious, where this is the truth. This is the complete unvarnished truth. And if you don't believe it exactly as we say it is, then you're our enemy.
Hmm.
Not let's have a discussion and try and find a middle ground, but you're our enemy, our sworn mortal enemy. And they will say this about the left, but boy, is that not true.
Yeah.
The problem the left has is that we always try to absorb every opinion that we possibly can before we do anything.
Yeah. And the left has there are it's a big country. There are groups in the left who are kind of like that, but they're not indicative of the entire left in the way that these folks are of the entire right.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's
So what I'm getting at is that there has been really a cultural shift in the Republican Party over the last 30 or 40 years,
yeah,
in that there's no debate here. We know what's best for the country. We're going to do it, and you can either get on board or you're our enemy.
yeah, yeah.
And that's the difference between the 78 Superman and this Superman, I think.
Hmm. Now, one of the other things that I think probably and there's some more political stuff I want to get into, but this
Yeah.
idea of this not being their Superman too. I mean, some I think there was some free floating anxiety. Oh, this Superman, he's vulnerable. uh they say, well, he cries. I don't remember him crying, but he could
He
have,
has
whatever.
emotions.
Yeah, all that
He
stuff. They had already built their Superman, and this guy wasn't it. And their Superman, who's their Superman? It's Homelander, it's Omni-Man, hell, even Brightburn. And this is where I want to harken back to our previous conversation
another James
is
Gunn effort.
Brightburn, yeah, but he was making a point that this is not
Yeah.
Superman.
Oh,
This
I
is
know. I
my
know.
this is my brain thing. And even you know you're not supposed to be a fan of Omni-Man. You're not supposed to be a fan of Homelander. The creators are kind of horrified that people actually were. And
Exactly.
you even see that spill over then to make that point that this is their Superman, this vicious absolutist throwing their power around freely without empathy, without compassion. You start seeing that leak in a little with Zack Snyder, and I don't want to say Zack Snyder's Superman was like that. He wasn't, but they did make him a little more vicious.
And
Maybe
a little more
vicious is too strong a word, but
dispassionate.
yeah, yeah. Um, and when he was passionate, when he broke Zod's neck, it was a moment, and the moment was gone.
Yeah.
And that almost just had to be in there. But anyways, we have a sense of the Superman that they wanted because they've been showing us that for years.
Well,
And
here's
then
the
they get an
thing.
actual Superman and it ain't what they like. And they don't know why they don't like it, but they don't like it and they're going to start making up shit. And if immigrant is a buzzword they can go through to manifest their dissatisfaction, they will.
Like I said, James Gunn did not make a political movie. Somebody came
No.
out and asked him, "Hey, is the Jaharan Boravia thing a metaphor for Israel and Palestine?" He said,
Yes, which is the
"No."
other thing I want to talk about.
He said,
Absolutely.
"No, no, I'm not. No, I'm telling a story about Superman."
Mhm.
And we get into this thing about who does art belong to. Art belongs to the people who perceive it, but
Mhm.
that wasn't his intention. And there's just uh, so I'm going to talk a little bit about philosophy here. Uh, I think the Republican Party sees Superman as the misinterpretation of Nietzsche's Übermensch. I want to get back to this because I want to talk about punk rock and Superman at some point. And the idea of the Übermensch was poisoned, was twisted by Nietzsche's daughter, who was a pro-Nazi. And the Übermensch is very different in the way Nietzsche conceived of him. he's better, but not in the sense of material better or intellectually better. He's better in the sense that he's not going to be swayed by convention, that he's going to look at society at a completely different from a completely different angle than your average person. And that's what makes him an Ubermensch, that he's not going to be swayed by tradition or convention or previous scholarship. And that's not the Ubermensch they want. They want the Ubermensch who is dominant over the rest of society, who is going to force them into a moral course of action, or what they see as a moral course of action.
Hmm.
And that's not Superman.
Yeah. Yeah.
Superman wants to help people to be their best, not force them. I am always concerned about people who want to use any kind of institution to make people better.
Right. Well, that's the Injustice Superman, which
That's
was,
right.
made as the anti-Superman, and in
Yeah.
fact is the anti-Superman. And this is it's such an improvement. I don't, I did as a movie, I didn't actually mind Man of Steel. I had to turn some of my expectations and desires off and look at it as a different person and not Superman, and I was sort of okay with it. Um, but there's this point in there in Man of Steel where I think really is emblematic of Zack Snyder and where he was coming from philosophically. It's when you remember Man of Steel, right?
Oh yeah.
When his father, Kevin Costner, is there and he's about to get sucked up by the tornado,
Mhm.
and Superman's he's ready to go and save him, and he just goes, "No, stay back," because what's
Yeah.
important is that Superman, that that Clark's identity, that Clark's well-being, that Clark's future, whatever, Clark's future is the important one here,
Right.
and his was not. And that's because in the Zack Snyder world, Superman is one of the vanguard, right?
Yeah.
Superman is someone to be held up by the great unwashed masses. Um, and the rest of us are irrelevant, but he's a god.
Well,
And
that's
that's
the
the opposite of Superman.
right.
It's the
That's what I was
opposite.
talking about when I talked about the twisting of the Ubermensch.
Yes.
That's not what the Ubermensch is supposed to do.
Hmm.
The Ubermensch is supposed to lead by moral example,
Hmm.
and that is freaking Superman. It's not the Nazi version of Superman. You must you must defer because I am a god.
Hmm. Hmm.
That's not Superman.
Right.
Superman is I am your humble servant. That's
Yep.
Superman.
Yep. Yep. Now, of course, that what also pisses them off. Well, actually, before I go on to this, let's linger a little bit on that
Okay.
analogy of the Middle East there, of the Gaza
Yes.
war. Um, that's interesting to me that people went there because what we had was completely generic.
Yes.
You could read just about any conflict vaguely like that into it if you really want to.
Well,
Um,
you could make it a metaphor for North-South global conflict.
sure.
I mean, that's as generic as it gets. You can put any conflict in you want there.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
It's a
literally
device.
anyone.
It's a device, not a plot point.
Yeah.
That's
You
all it
could
is. It's just a device.
you could say Russia and brown Ukrainians.
Yes.
You could do whatever you want in there. But I think it's really interesting and it says more about the people seeing it, why they go straight to it. What's going on there. I'd like to think there's a lingering morality in there that's waking up and sees sees some parallels that maybe are
Hmm.
unpleasant. I doubt that, but I do think it says something that's right where they go. I'm not sure what, but it speaks to
Well,
them.
I just think it's the bias of the new. It's the situation that's current now, so people are jumping on it. If this had been released in 2024, they would have said, "Oh, this is a metaphor for Ukraine and Russia."
Yeah. Although, obviously well, except there's the brown element, except there's brown people involved.
Yes, this is true.
You'd have to
You're
make
right.
them brown Ukrainians, like I was saying. But you could still do it. I mean, it still totally works, right? It still
Yeah,
totally works. And this script was started, before, I can't remember, I should know the date. What is the date of the Hamas attack?
October 7th.
Okay, thank you. I feel a little self-conscious. I didn't remember that date, but the script was started before then.
Yeah.
So
Oh, well before that.
yeah,
Um, but it, I I just want to keep hammering this point. He didn't make a political movie. This is
right.
not an analog for what is going on in society now.
Hmm.
He's looking at the bigger picture, the greater values that represent Superman. He's not, and people are saying all kinds of crazy things. They're saying that the pocket dimension prison is Guantanamo Bay,
I hadn't
and
heard
that
that
the
one.
leader of Boravia is Putin. And this is the one I think they might be a little bit right on is Elon Musk and Lex Luthor. But again, I have to say, this is kind of the modern Lex Luthor. He's a
Yeah.
tech bro. He thinks he knows better than everyone else because he's successful. He thinks he knows
Hmm.
better than everyone else because he's rich. And
Hmm.
Peter Thiel, Mark Andreessen, Elon Musk, they're all the same thing. And this is really a lot. This is a lot more dangerous to American society than people know. These guys out there really do believe democracy is done, it doesn't work, it's a failure, and only a tech bro solution will get us out of this problem.
Well, I think you might be right about that too, just because, or at least inspiration,
Yeah,
because the whole idea in there that he was going to get his own country out of this, where he was going to get to Luthor was going to get his own country out of it, and he could do what he wanted, and he could make a country the right way. Yeah, that totally fits.
I mean
That
that
seems
just that
very
tracks.
Musk.
The other thing I think that's great that he did, and this is not the most political point, but it's out there, and I'm going to save my most political point for the end. But uh, the monkey bots
Hmm.
that do you remember what they were doing?
Other than just typing things madly into the computer.
They were trashing Superman on Twitter.
Oh, that's right. They were the ones doing that.
So his depiction of all these people who are on social media just parroting the same crap they hear from Joe Rogan or whoever they want to look at, that's exactly what they are. They're just
Yeah, that's
monkey
actually great.
robots.
That went right by me, but you're right, and that is
Now they're just
hilarious.
monkey robots. These people, they have no brains. They're just there to type bad shit about whoever they don't like at the moment. I thought that was great.
Yeah,
It was like,
no,
oh
that's
my
cool.
God. He really hit the nail on the head with that one.
Yeah. So, just as an aside, do you recommend the movie?
I do.
Hmm.
I do. And I do because of the values it was trying to represent.
You know
I
that.
also I also do because I like James Gunn's spin on stuff. He's optimistic. He's
Yeah.
not he's not utopian.
Hmm.
He's not starry-eyed. He's
Hmm.
not unrealistic about things, but he's optimistic.
Right.
And,
Brightburn
and
wasn't making a statement on
what?
the way Brightburn was not making a statement on the way the world
No,
should be. It was just a little brain game.
it was a thought experiment.
Yeah. Yeah,
What would
that's
the
what
world be like
there,
if
that's what
Superman?
I was thinking. Brain game, though. Brain
Same
game
thing.
works.
To me, it was a bit like Red Sun.
Sure.
But instead of being evil, Red Sun, Superman's a communist,
Hmm.
which I think is funny because the first thing he does is kill Stalin. Anyway, um, but this is not a political movie, guys. It's the Republican Party trying to make it political because they think it will speak to their base.
It'll speak
And
to their
by
base, I mean, and the base eats it up because they just want to live in the us versus them reality. That's
yeah,
that's all they see the world through now. That's it.
Oh, and well, I'll tell you what my bias is here. I can tell you who really is most responsible for luring people into that crazy way of thinking
Originally going
in
back,
the
how far
last
back are we
in the
going?
last 30 years.
In the last 30 years. Okay, let's see. What
40
is
really.
40? So it could be Newt Gingrich.
Nope,
No, it could be Rush Limbaugh.
that.
Oh, okay.
He purposely divided America for one reason, to make
Oh,
as much money as he possibly
yeah,
could.
that's what I was going to say, to make a buck.
And he is the second greatest fraud in the 20th century. The first being
Second.
supply side economics.
Oh,
Uh, but he successfully convinced people that he was an expert in politics when the only thing Rush Limbaugh was an expert in was selling radio and TV advertising time.
yeah. Well, he knew
He was an ad man. That's all
if
he
you have
was.
an audience, if you know you've identified an audience that's big enough to support you, just talk to them and, I don't
Yeah.
know. Yeah.
But I'm still confused. I don't understand why Republicans are still so angry. They
I
have
know.
control of every element of political life, but they're not happy.
Well, they want the left stomped out, and that's what Trump is trying to do,
Yeah,
starting with
well, I mean,
academia.
so far they're doing a pretty good job. Look at Stephen
Yep.
Colbert.
Yep. Yep. And we'll see how it goes with Harvard.
Oh, I think Harvard's going to prevail. I mean, I just keep telling people this. Harvard is 140 years older than the United States.
Hmm.
It was around long, long before the founding fathers were born and
Hmm.
will likely continue long after the United States.
Yeah. Now, I don't want to equate Harvard with all the left by any means.
No,
In
good
some
Lord,
ways,
no.
they're the anti-left, but um, in a lot of ways, they are also the intellectual
Well,
left.
well,
Um,
Harvard is Harvard is as corporate Ivy League traditional uh, WASP institution you can imagine.
right. Right.
And they're doing good things now. Like Princeton did this a long time ago. Princeton is now essentially tuition free. Um, if you can get accepted, they will pay for your education.
Oh, that's great.
Well,
Nice.
we already know a place which does that, uh, more or
Yeah.
less. But the interesting thing to me about that is that Princeton is by far considered a much more traditional conservative college,
Hmm.
far more than Harvard is, and yet in a lot of ways they are way ahead of the curve in terms of doing some other stuff,
Yeah.
doing some progressive things. But I just keep wanting to tell people this is not a political movie. This is the Republican Party trying to make a movie which is in the canon, it's almost 100 years old now, canon
Hmm.
of Superman.
Yeah.
They're trying to make it political because nothing can be accepted on face value. You have to put a political lens on it, which is ironic to me, considering how much they hate being woke.
Hmm.
But that's essentially what they're saying.
Oh, sure.
What they're saying about the left is that nothing can be viewed without the lens of the woke.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's
It's
just
interesting how
not.
they also see vulnerability in this movie as somehow woke. Because that was the other thing I took from that conversation I was listening to before we started was they were so pissed off that Superman was vulnerable, that he was beat upable. That
Yeah,
they meet him
that
and
he
he's
could
bloody.
bleed.
They hate that. They hated that. It was very interesting. I don't want to go too far with that, but that's another equation of weakness with the left. So if he's weak, he must be woke from what is that? The associative property? What is
Well,
that? I don't remember.
yeah. Well, I do have to point out here that they're very fond of saying "go broke." I mean, "go woke, go broke."
Yeah.
And
And
I
they
think
and they
this.
want to flex their power, so they're hoping it can be woke so they can crash it and take credit for it.
I mean, well, let's just look at Avatar.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, the James Cameron Avatar.
Yeah.
That is
Man.
not, it's anti-technology, it's anti-government, it's anti-capitalist.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
You can't find a much woker movie than that. And yet, how many people, and this is what I always say when people say, well, go woke, go broke. I say, well, you know, in 2024, there were 800 million movie tickets bought.
Hmm.
Do you think all of those people are Democrats? So they'll complain about go woke, go broke, but how are they spending their money?
Right.
They're going to see these movies. Anyway,
Yeah.
so what else? Because I got a couple more things.
Oh, fire him off. I think,
I want to talk about
yeah.
punk rock and
All right.
Superman. And I
Sounds
want to
good.
talk about how this is the most political point he makes.
Hmm.
This is overtly political. And you have this whole discussion. And by the way, I do have to say this. I think Rachel Brosnahan is the best Lois Lane ever, ever, ever in movies. There is so much 1940s, His Girl Friday, uh, patter between the two of them. It is great. And she completely holds her own in this movie.
Yeah. I
She's
think,
not she's not subservient, she's not submissive. She's an actual reporter who does her job. She's not head over teacup in love with the superhero. She's questioning their relationship at the most fundamental level.
mhm.
This is not uh, Lois Lane of the 40s. This is Lois Lane of the 2020s.
Yeah.
And I thought she was great in this movie.
I think
She
all the casting. I think the casting was one
oh
of the strongest points of the movie. I
he
thought
knocked it out of the
yeah,
park. And I'm a big Henry Cavill fan. I love Henry Cavill. I thought he was a great Superman in
I
Man of
agree.
Steel.
My complaints notwithstanding, I thought he was fantastic.
I thought he would have done a great job in this Superman.
Sure.
He's got the acting chops to pull off all the other stuff.
Oh yeah.
But I think David Cornsweet fills those red boots just fine.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Um, I love Nathan Fillion in everything, but here he's the anti Malcolm Reynolds. He is so good as Guy Gardner. I can't think of anybody better to play Guy Gardner. He
Oh,
is
as soon as I saw that he'd been cast, I thought that was kind of brilliant,
that is
actually.
that is a stroke of genius.
Hmm.
Um, I love Jimmy Olsen.
Hmm.
He's great. I even love the Victoria's Secret model they cast as a Eve.
Oh, right.
That's Sarah Sampaio. She's a
Hmm.
Victoria's Secret angel. She was
Thought you were
great
going to
in the
say
movie.
cat for some reason, but of course, yeah.
Oh well, yeah. The lady who plays Cat Grant is great, and I
Hmm.
think she'll be interesting to see in further movies. Um, but casting is just brilliant here. I mean, he really knocked it out of the park with these people. But what I was getting back to this thing about vulnerability, um, you know, this is the alpha male generation of Republicans. This is, I'm an alpha and everyone else has to do what I want to do. There's no give and take. There's
Hmm.
no consideration of other people's feelings. There's no understanding that being vulnerable is essential because if people don't see you as vulnerable, how can they know how strong you are?
Hmm.
They look at it as a uh, opposite poles. There's no continuum.
Right,
Either you
right.
are an alpha or you're an omega.
Yeah.
And this is the thing a problem I have with a lot of conservative values these days is that there's no continuum for anything. It's all black and white. It's all you're with us or you're our enemy. You're
Oh,
weak
yeah.
or you're strong. You're right or you're wrong.
Hmm.
And that's dangerous. I know people on the left who are doing that too. And
Yeah.
that is extremely dangerous.
Yeah.
That is the worst possible way to look at things.
It's funny
This I
because even, and this is sort of ironically true when you talk about people on the left who are like that, is to take that approach, to have that worldview, you have to be bereft of empathy. And so you've got people on the bleeding heart left, right, who do get out there into that own version of their world, and they sort of ironically then they have to be the same thing. They have to be bereft of empathy to be there. And so that's always frustrating when I see that as a pretty hardcore lefty myself.
Yeah.
obviously.
So we were talking about punk rock, and they have this
Hmm.
whole discussion about how, you know, she was this punk rock kid, and he says, "Well, but I like punk bands. I'm punk too." And the basic message they say in the movie is that perhaps being kind is the punkest thing of all. And I think that's absolutely right. I think this is the most political thing he says in the movie. And the reason why I think that is because people have this misconception. If you go out there and you read punk lyrics, they are not about smashing things up necessarily and
Some of them.
uh, taking over the world. And what they are about is opposition to absolutes,
Hmm.
opposition to traditional form, opposition to, to tradition of any kind, because that's not where the truth is with the
Hmm.
punks.
Particularly traditional authority.
Yet traditional authority, especially.
Hmm.
And I just think this is the most political thing about the movie. And I think it's dead on
Hmm.
in today's society, being kind, thinking of other people, sacrificing, doing stuff that and expecting no reward for it,
Hmm.
having morals and ethics, and having a point of view which is backed up by significant empirical fact. That is the real punk rock these days, because
Yeah.
increasingly on both sides, you've got this hardening of position, and neither one is right.
Hmm.
Neither one is right. Everything is in the in between, and that is a fundamental tenet in punk. If you think you're right, you're probably not thought it through.
Hmm. Yeah.
And
And
this is,
I'm gonna watch that in between word, because I think yeah, it's between the two poles for
yeah.
sure. I mean, I'm pretty far left myself, so I don't live in the moderate universe at all. But I think what you say is still true.
Oh, I'm not saying it's in the middle.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
saying
It's
it's somewhere in between the two polar
right,
positions.
right. I just wanted to make
That
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 point, lest
and that
anybody
if
misinterpret
it
me.
no 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 yeah yeah I don't mean to be ambiguous about
Hmm.
this. I meant what I said.
Hmm.
It's in between, not in the
Right.
middle. But I think he's right. I think the fundamental values of punk as it was created are the most radical thing you can do right now.
Hmm.
And I think that's kind of true throughout history.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's probably true.
it
Yeah.
just is. It's you know, I'm going to go back to the founding fathers again because it's what I'm schooled in. But um, oh, and they themselves knew they were doing this. Uh, the reason why they designed the system the way it was is because you can just summarize it in one sentence written by James Madison. If men were angels, no government would be necessary.
Hmm. Yeah, I've heard that one.
And what they're saying there is that the default for humanity is bad. Do the bad thing. Do the thing that's going to benefit you the most. Ignore other people and their circumstances. Don't be kind. Get what you need. And they're right about that, I think. I
I don't
think,
think you have to interpret it so bleakly. I just think you have to interpret it as imperfection.
well,
Um,
but I don't think the founders thought that. I think we might think that now, but if you go back
mhm.
and read their letters and stuff, especially the religious ones, John Adams, he is pretty bleak about the nature of humanity.
Well, he was
But
kind
it's
of a
not just them.
dick.
They get that from a long philosophical tradition. I mean, that comes from Hobbes.
Yeah,
Life
right.
is nasty, brutish, and short in the
Hmm.
state of nature. But uh, I really that's the part of this movie that spoke to me was if you want to be punk, be nice to people.
Hmm.
If you want to be punk, do the right thing. If you want to be punk, think of other people. If you want to be punk, don't conform to traditional ways of thinking. And I
Right.
think that's right. I think he's dead on. And I think that's a really that's pretty deep stuff for a science fiction movie,
Hmm.
especially when it's brightly colored and crazy as this one was. I like the bright colors. I think it's great.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, my big problem with the movie was it's, absolutely incredible full speed ahead rushing to world build at the expense of character building, at the expense of bringing up. I mean, we never get that. That's a big question to say, should Superman be engaging in foreign policy? That's a huge question. It gets asked,
Yeah.
and that's it. We never deal with it. We never think about it again.
Well,
And
I
that's
think he's trying to
frustrating.
avoid I think he was trying to avoid being an overtly political
Well,
movie.
sure, but he shouldn't have brought it up then, because you asked the question, you've got to deal with the question.
Well,
You called the question.
so
Um,
this is Chekhov's question. If you see a gun in a play, it's going to be used later on, right?
um, yeah, one way or another, right?
But well, I want to speak out in defense of him because I've been critical of James Gunn before and
Mhm.
on this podcast. I think he's taking a very long view on how to do this.
Well,
Uh,
he's taking too much of a long view.
well,
He's getting ahead of himself.
I think I think that's an empirical question. Um, I think I think this movie does suffer from some flaws the way you're talking about. Um, I think he wants to throw all this stuff out there for people who might not be familiar with it. I think he's trying to go, hey, this is how I'm going to do things now. And he overdoes that a little bit.
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. There's some few scenes in there that were direct repudiations of Zack Snyder that were maybe a little entertaining but unnecessary because it was part of that screaming of "This is how I'm going to do it now." Not one of those things was Superman's first word in the movie. Did you catch that?
I don't remember.
Golly.
Oh, yeah. Well, you know, that's like Captain America saying language with the cursive,
Right.
which that just made me like Cap all the more
Right.
because, you know, he's supposed to be the moral guiding force. And I think he is all the way through the Infinity Saga, even though he's really confused about where the hell he fits.
Hmm.
Um, and, you know, this is a good point I want to make. And I think both the Captain America arc and I think the future Superman arc, which is going to make this point, is ideas, not ideology.
Hmm. Yeah, 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 definitely.
People ask me what my politics are, and I say, well, you know, I'm progressive, but the most important thing people can understand when they approach politics is think ideas, not ideology.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I
I,
think that's a
ideas
good
are what's
statement.
important. When you start to institutionalize those ideas, is where you can crash and burn.
Hmm. Hmm.
But
There's
the
a place for
idea,
ideology, but not, boy, in those places where it doesn't belong, it really doesn't belong.
well, this is what I tell people when they say, well, the founding fathers were all white rich men and they didn't give a flying fuck about anybody else. Okay, that's partially true, yes. But here's where it's not true. Everybody's created equally.
Hmm.
Everybody has universal rights. That's an idea. And that's an idea that they tried to make real. And we're still trying to make real.
Hmm.
So the problem becomes how you execute that idea.
Hmm.
But ideas are important. I mean, you know, just read the letter from a Birmingham jail.
Hmm.
And, you know, essentially one of the messages of that is that, okay, sure, the white men were terrible, but look at the ideas they put forward.
Right, right. They
And
were.
so I want people to focus on ideas. And man, the fundamental idea of this movie is you want to be an overarching moral force, be good to people.
Hmm.
And that's what I love about this movie.
And that honestly, part of the reason we're here is to help each other. And
Yes.
that's, that's a big message from it, I think.
So I love this movie. And I was kind of a little skeptical. Wait, because I saw that you see the first clip that came out there, first clip that leaked was Superman crashing into the Antarctic and Crypto jumping all over him. And he's like wheezing and he's bleeding and he's having trouble moving. And I was like, wait a minute, this isn't Superman. What the hell is going on here?
Yes, yes, that weakness thing. And he
And then
put
I
that
went,
right out front.
yep. And then I went, hmm, maybe I just need to stop here
Hmm.
and look at things a different way.
Hmm.
And that's what I did. And
You know,
so I think,
another
go
thing that
ahead.
probably pissed them off too. While we're talking, it was occurring to me just to go way back to we had the bad Supermen who were the right wing
Hmm.
idealized Supermen. Who's he fighting? Right? Who's the bad guy? So that also must have gotten under their skin. You know, an
Yeah.
evil
Oh, I'm
Superman,
sure it
Ultraman.
did.
He wasn't Ultraman from the comics, but still he was Ultraman.
Yeah. No, he was Ultraman. That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And this is the thing. Uh, this is one of the things I like about Marvel. I don't want my gods perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Thor's not perfect. In
Right.
fact, he's depressed for a major part of all of the movies.
Right.
He's depressed when his mother dies. He's depressed when Loki dies. He's depressed when his dad dies. I mean, he's got lots of reason to be depressed, but
Mm-hmm.
he's not perfect. He's got some traits that we can identify with.
Right.
For all intents and purposes, Captain America's a god, but he's totally alienated in the movies.
Mm-hmm.
He doesn't see that he fits anywhere
Right.
except at the front. Um, I don't want an all-knowing, all-seeing automaton, can't be questioned, can't be threatened, can't be defeated superhero.
Mm-hmm.
I like that about Marvel. Thor is vulnerable. Thor has uh he has flaws. He has problems.
Well,
It's
like the way our gods always were until large scale institutionalization. Really.
well, I
I
mean,
mean, think of the all the pagan gods. Think of just they're all flawed. They're all reflecting humanity, often in ways that were not too complimentary.
Zeus, who can't keep it zipped.
Right.
But I just love this whole punk rock aesthetic to this movie because it's there. It's just there. It's it's not obvious except till the very end. But uh and then of course the Teddy Bear Iggy Pop collaboration. That song, I'm a punk rocker.
Oh, huh.
That is a perfect anthem for this. And if you've seen the video, Iggy Pop is the Iggy Poppiest he's ever been in that video.
Jeez. That, that's not
Seriously.
necessarily a good thing.
No, no, it is in this case. It really is in this case. This is not the rolling around on the stage, cutting yourself in glass, heroin addict Iggy Pop. This is the Iggy Pop of big ideas.
Right. Well, this has been a
I
lot of
recommend
fun.
this movie. I recommend
Yeah.
this movie. And I especially recommend this movie to people who are on the right and think they're going to hate it.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good point. More than anything, those folks should go see it. Chill out,
Go see
relax.
this
You'll like
movie.
it. It's good. It's not
Uh,
political. I recommend it too. It's just a soft recommendation. I'd say have low expectations.
and see, I
But
think that was the
you'll have a
advantage with
good time.
I think that was the advantage with me in this movie. I had zero expectations.
Mm,
I came in and I said, "Yeah, James Gunn did a great job of Guardians of the Galaxy, except for the second one. I didn't like the second one at all.
hmm.
Uh, the third one, I don't care how hardcore you are. When you find out about Rocket's story, you're going to cry. I don't care how many tours of combat duty you did. Rocket's going to break your heart. But you need to go see this movie especially if you're a conservative. You need to understand that this is about basic human values.
Hmm.
That's what it's about.
Yep.
And
That's
if
all
you,
it's trying to be about.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. This is not. He wants to tell a story about why it's good to have these values.
Hmm.
This is not Republicans are bad. Elon Musk is bad. Capitalism is bad. None of that.
Hmm.
Um, it's, hey, this is how we ought to be behaving toward each other. And my suggestion is that if you still come out of this movie thinking it's terrible, the movie might not be the problem. Because you might want to start re-examining some other stuff.
Yeah.
So, and yeah, that sounds condescending, but I I just I spent my whole life professionally trying to worry about confirmation bias and admit your biases and check your thinking and all this other stuff. When you're in academia, more than in most other jobs, you are constantly hounded to reevaluate your ideas, present evidence for your ideas, look
Mhm.
at evidence which might go against what you say. And, we're all humans. Some people do it better than others. But man, if you're not looking at this movie with an eye toward, can I do this? Or is this a good idea? Or what are the ethics of this movie? You might want to re-examine your ethics.
Yeah,
It's important to do, and it's important for
I
everybody to
agree.
do.
I
So,
agree completely.
but I like the movie. I can definitely recommend it. I have expressed concern about James Gunn being the only person in charge of this, but I've also said that one of the benefits to early Kevin Feige, not so much anymore Kevin Feige, was that he hired people and let them do their jobs. I think James Gunn did this here too.
Hmm.
And I think if he can continue that, it's going to be great. I think the DCU is going to really challenge Marvel here if he can do what this movie sets the tone for. And yeah, there
Yeah,
are problems with it. There are problems with it, but I think it's a great start.
yeah, and I will go against the popular feeling and say the movie did make me now dread the Supergirl movie. And most people feel otherwise, but I'll just leave it at that.
Well, I don't know the comics behind it, but I'm telling you right now, Millie Alcock is a fabulous actress.
Oh yeah,
Did you
yeah,
see her in House of the Dragon?
yeah,
She is great. If anybody can do this the way I think it's going to be done, it's her.
yeah. Really interesting, but I think inspired choice for
Yeah.
sure.
Oh no, yeah. I was very skeptical when she was announced as Supergirl. I was like, I
Now,
don't
see,
know about
I
this.
thought, huh, that's really interesting and good. I'm going with that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be good. All
Hmm.
right, I think we've talked this out,
I think
but
we have.
this is a movie about human values. It's a movie about being unconventional.
Hmm.
It really is,
And
and I'm all for that.
and I will just mention again that as we talked about a couple years ago, Superman is such a powerful lens to popular culture and popular the feeling. Um, Always worth checking out Superman stuff, whether it's the comics or the movies
Yeah,
or
he's always a good
whatever.
barometer.
Yeah, always a good one. Okay, we'll see you all next time.
Yep, looking forward to it. Thanks for listening.
Our theme music is by Christopher Piatek.